What's going on, guys? So we're back again with another gameplay video. This time we have Perth Pro Players team member Chris here on the left playing Gogeta Xeno, and we have Pat here on the right playing Gohan and Icarus. So they're getting started into the gameplay video, but I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, Team Card Titan. So if you guys want any DBS Seal products or DBS singles, make sure you check out that link in the description below. Now, this was almost the Oceanics final, right? Gogeta Xeno versus Kid Icarus. It could have been potentially. There was a hell of a lot of Gohan and Icarus running around for that. So there's always that potential that it could have been there. So this is going to be a pretty interesting match. Unfortunately, Chris, I don't know if everyone saw, but Chris just hit Pan SCR off the top mill. Very, very sad. That's not something you want to see happen at all. But he's starting off very aggressive here. He's found his Gogeta, being able to swing a double strike, so forcing Pat either to awaken, probably this next turn, which is rather scary, or he's just going to have to protect himself a hell of a lot. Now, interesting thing with this deck, I guess it is pretty good to counter Gogeta, right? Just because it does have access to quite a lot of negates, so it forces a lot of cards from hand, means you can protect a little bit easier. You've also got access to your counterplay Goku as well, so you can tap things down. But the thing is when you counterplay or want to counterplay, this deck can establish a hell of a lot of the true fighting spirit Son Gokus, which means you're going to start warping cards from hand every time you try. And the other scary thing as well is, as you can see in Chris's hand just there, he does play Koitsukai. So maining some Koitsukai, because that is a rather good card against yellow, right? At the moment, they want to be playing these things out onto the board. So if you get True Fighting Spirits next to Koitsukai's pretty much, they're going to be losing a hell of a lot of cards from hand, losing a hell of a lot of advantage. So it is rather scary for them, right, to do something like that. Now, Chris has played against yellow many, many times, knows what he needs to do, right? So the big thing is anything that's on board, you swing with first before you establish anything else. So then they can't just tap things down. But sometimes you do have to establish your true fighting spirits first, knowing that you're probably not going to swing with them, but it gives you access. If they do have access to their negates, it's beneficial for you, because then they're going to start losing cards from hand. I think in this instance, true fighting is probably not the greatest thing. I think Pat will probably feel comfortable going down to 3, so he can get his awakened on the leader swing. So there is that potential that he does do that, but he may go for his negate here, just taking a life and potentially playing out a blocker. So just losing that blocker sadly, but it is still a negate. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm assuming we just warp the blocker straight away, so the extra card goes to drop, right? So we've got 2 cards in drop, which means we have access to our riposte and everything like that as well. Now, I would assume that Pat just goes for his awaken here, because I don't think Chris is going to combo up at all, right? I think he's just going to leave it at 10k for himself, unless he wants something else in the drop to be able to overwhelm. Now, I don't think it's really too necessary right now to do that. So I'm assuming Pat's just going to go for his awaken, drawing 2, and then he can just combo Icarus if he wants, but I don't think it's really needed. Unless he just wants to combo off a card here, it's going to be exactly the same thing. He's going to get 1 card back at the end of the next turn for his awaken, right? So we're just going to combo out quite comfortably, probably just leaving this True Fighting Spirit up, but we are going to go for the swing, it looks like. So Chris deciding to go on the real aggressive route, get some damage through while he can. And we do get access to our High Dragon, which is great. So we get our draw off, which makes it even better. We're going to bottom deck. We're going to hit a mirror just here. Play it out onto the board. Hopefully having a Union Fusion target. I don't think we do right now. We're going to Warp Petrification, drawing a card, right? Hopefully Union Fusion target. Fingers crossed, because we do just need to keep this aggression up. And getting a few more draws is always good for us. So it looks like we're not finding what we need exactly, but that's okay. Now, Pat has a hell of a grip in hand, and that's kind of what this deck does, right? Draws a lot of cards and is able to, I guess, control the opponent quite a lot. Now, Pat probably doesn't want to tap out, but he does have the Unison in hand. And we also have access to Turles just here. Turles All Too Easy is by far one of my favorite cards at the moment. That card is just so powerful. It just does so much, and I really like the fact that it's versatile, is that you can KO 2 cards in rest mode, KO 1 card in rest mode, and draw a card, right? You've got the option there. So most of the time, you're going to get at least a +2, right? Every turn, you're going to get a +2 because you're going to play it. You're going to KO something and draw a card, or you just KO 2 things, which is great. So we are going to, it looks like, play out our 1 cost, swinging into the mirror, comboing off our higher dragon, I dare say, so we can get extra draws, right? And we do just want to keep that card. So one big thing against or about this deck, right? So many ways that they can warp your cards, and if you can keep access to your higher dragon by keep placing it in the drop area, it's always going to be beneficial for you, right? So we've got rid of mirror, but as you saw before, we milled a few cards. Very easy to put mirror into the warp, so very easy just to play that back out again this next turn. I don't think we have another double strike Gogeta though, sadly. But Pat is showing at least 1 energy up, and more than likely we have a counterplay Goku at this point in hand anyway, which is quite nice for him, so he can protect his Turles all too easy with that if he's got it, or potentially has a riposte as well. There is that option too. Now, Chris can awaken this turn, but he definitely wants to get full value. I'm pretty sure I can see an overarm Goku as well, which is quite nice for him. So he can overarm Goku, put his pair back, grab that Gogeta back, play into that Gogeta, right? That is an option, which is quite strong for him as well right now. And this deck can play into riposte quite well too, because it doesn't really use its energy for too much. You can kind of get benefit out of it. So we have got a mill of 2 more Kais and only sadly 1 5k Goku, right? So I don't think we have a pair. I think we've just got a Gogeta. But I think 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got 5 there in our drop area right now. So no pair, but we can, I guess, combo 1 card off, and then it matches the 15k just here. So forcing another card from hand potentially, unless this gets negated. But just drawing a card, taking a life, I would assume we do combo at least 1, probably to get our Gogetas back, because I don't think we saw the Gogeta that we want to see in hand. I think we only got the SR one, which we'll probably do on the backside. But it looks like we're going to, right? Looks like we're going to hit the Koisakai into our drop area as well. And that can fix up our hand a little bit too, because we're going to get back our mirror, so we could bottom deck that mirror potentially. Chris is going to 20k, Pat going to 20 with his own Koisakai and a slug, right? So protecting, more than likely we go the Koisakai here, so we pay the 1 energy, go the Koisakai, right? Placing probably that mirror at the bottom of the deck, I dare say, and drawing just 1 card, which isn't too bad. So drawing 1 card, always valuable, just to cycle through. Got himself a double strike as well, which is quite nice. Now we can go for our overarm Goku, grab ourselves back our Gogeta, that is 6. So obviously you have to ask if there's going to be any response first before we do anything further. We do get to grab a card back. Hopefully Chris doesn't forget that. So we are going to grab a card back. We're going to grab back, I dare say, yeah, the Gogeta just there. So we can get our Union Fusion going on this front side. So I think he's got a 1 cost in hand to at least awaken just here. If not, we have access to a pair, if not 2 now as well, which is quite nice. So he can go for the pair just here, play out the SR if he wants. Yep, so playing to the SR, paying 1, drawing a card off the leader effect, swinging in with the SR, and then he can play the True Fighting Spirit out using this effect. So it looks like we are going to just bottom deck it straight away, playing our True Fighting Spirit out onto the board. We have a Goku and a Vegeta just here, which is quite nice. I can't see if we have another lot though, which is rather sad, but we can get our mirror out onto board because we do have the Kai. So we are going to attack. We are going to take a life, finding another Gogeta, which is really nice for Chris. So if it does get cleared, he's got it then this next turn. Chris doing exactly what he needs to do, is just keeping that pressure on as much as possible, right? That's what he wants, and that's what he needs, is to keep the pressure on as much as possible. Force some cards out of Pat's hand. So we are going to awaken here, drawing 1, untapping 1. especially with Koitsukai and access to the True Fighting Spirit now. We're very safe. So more than likely we go for the Kai, get ourselves a mirror out onto the board, and then we are able to discard if we need to, hopefully, one of the one costs, right? So we have another pair, because I can't see if we have another pair in our drop area, which is rather unfortunate. And that, I guess, is the nature of the beast, right? Is that sometimes you just don't hit the RNG that you need, unfortunately. Sometimes it happens that way. You just don't get exactly what you need. So it looks like we are going to discard a double strike, drawing a card, finding one of our pieces, which is great, right? So we can do 1 and 1. So we can do one from the warp, one from hand here, if we want to go into our double strike. And I dare say that's a good choice. We get a draw, plus you swing, you get rid of that Turles, right? Which is great. So, and if Pat wants to counter play this card as well, so it doesn't get the value, he is losing quite a lot of cards from hand. But it looks like we're not going to do the counter. We are warping. It looks like no negates. We do have a Final Flash in hand, which is quite nice. So we are going to go for the Final Flash, negating True Fighting Spirit's effect, which is fair enough. Taking it to 30k to 25. Chris is still okay with that, because that's one less Final Flash now that he has to deal with. So I definitely think valuable for Chris here to see them lose a True Fighting Spirit, which is nice. And hell of a big board right now. So if you ever go up against Gohan Icarus, you're playing Gogeta Xeno. As you can see, what Chris is trying to do is just, if the opponent wants to counter or use any counter effects or anything like that, he really, really wants to tax the opponent as much as possible, either with the True Fighting Spirits or the Koitsukais, right? Both very valuable, both rather scary as well, because they have very strong effects, and it's going to tax the opponent a hell of a lot, right? So that's the scary thing here for Pat, is that he wants to counter, but he's going to make it cost a lot if he does want to counter, right? So we are going to play out the Gohan Icarus, or the Higher Dragon, sorry, because they didn't call it Icarus in this game for some reason, which is real weird. They called it Higher Dragon instead. Pat with a full bloody textbook in hand, it looks like, almost. So really, really nice for him just having so much. Looks like we have access to a Basil here as well. So he may go for the Basil and just be able to clear that Unison straight off the board. Or he may pay 2 even for Turles, and then hopefully clear 2 more of the cards on the board, and we can swing into the mirror once again, right? So it looks like we are going to go for Basil instead. Getting to draw a card, going for the plus effect, because we've got at least 5 in Resmo, which is quite nice. There's no way for Chris now to, I guess, free warp anything, which is good. So we are going to swing in. I'm assuming this goes into... so I think the Basil goes twice into the mirror, and the leader goes once into the leader. Yes, it gives access to Chris, I guess. Gives an extra card to Chris, potentially. If he doesn't want to combo out, he can combo out very easily, but takes super combo away. But the other thing is, right, is his life starts getting lower, means he can't swing with his True Fightings, and he can't use the leader effect to buff them as well. So he does want to defend. Because at this point now, life's a little bit more precious. I think we just got another True Fighting and another 6-cost thwarting, which is rather nice for him. So we're going to swing, I'm assuming here, twice into the mirror. It probably would have been worth almost swinging into the mirror first, just to make sure that those damages went through. Because if he could, right, potentially go for Power Burst and negate. But it looks like instead we're going to go for the Vegeta. Interesting. So it looks like we're going to clear the 2 1 costs off the board. So we're going to actually go for the effect of Power of a Super Saiyan, resting the True Fighting, and then swinging into it with the Basil just here, which is quite nice. So that's really nice for him. Being able to clear those cards off the board always important, right? He still has access to 3 energy, so he could have still had a Turles. But I think really in this deck, especially against a deck like this, if you can keep some energy up, you're definitely feeling a lot more confident in what you can do. So I think it's worth for Pat to probably just keep this energy up. But it looks like we are just going to hit the Turles. So he really, really wants to go for the board clear here and just even clear this mirror Unison as well. So swinging in to the mirror unison is really getting off the board as soon as possible. And that is also a very good choice, right? Because it is very scary. Allowing them to just be set up means it's a little bit harder for us to be able to close out the game or just be able to defend because they have so many attacks. And this, I guess this deck can set up a hell of a lot of attacks for so very, very cheap, right? Now, it looks like we've got access to 2 more True Fighting Spirits, right? Which is rather nice for Chris. I don't think we have a Koitsukai here in hand, but having access to two True Fighting Spirits is rather nice for Chris. So charging into our blocker, right, which is interesting, but I guess what he can do is he can establish the 2 True Fighting Spirits, and then he can swing with SF3 thwarting. Very easy for him to set up this next turn. And then what he can do is, I guess, force some cards from hand, right? Because I would dare say we set up another True Fighting Spirit, unless he wants to swing with them, right? Which he may do, and maybe that's why he'd rather set up other cards. So we are going to swing in here. I'm assuming into leader, I dare say. Into leader, force a card from hand, but if Pat has the magic Higher Dragon, get a combo, draw a card. Power of a Super Saiyan, we're going to rest. Hitting Poutine, which is rather nice here. So, yeah, very unfortunate for Chris there. So, he does have to overwhelm first, right? Or he has to play something else out first to trigger that, get that effect going, right? Because that is rather scary. So, probably goes for his overwhelm Trunks here. Put a pair in the drop. That effect is triggered. And then he can play into the Thwarting the Dark Empire, the SS3. So, we've triggered that effect now of Poutine. Playing it in rest mode. Right. Hitting a thwarting. I think what he needs to do, though, is set up another True Fighting if he can. Because more than likely, Pat being able to, I guess, lose 1 card from hand for this, he does get a drawback if he uses the counterplay Goku, right? So that's not the end of the world. So he probably feels quite safe there. But it looks like we're going to get no response. We are going to swing in, I dare say, into the leader once again. We are going to riposte, warping 1 card from hand for the True Fighting. And this is why I said I think it was probably worth setting up another, because losing 1 card is not terrible, right? So Pat has to warp 1 from hand because True Fighting's on the board. Chris can potentially have a response to the card being played if he feels like he's going to go any further this turn, right? If he needs to and wants to play out more things, he can go for the Super Kamehameha, stop that card from hitting the board, which stops it from needing to rest things. Does not stop the negate from happening, though. But we are going to warp the Turles straight away, which I think is a very good choice. That double strike hanging around is rather scary. So, very easy once again. He can Turles and get rid of 2 things. Looks like what we're going to do is play the blocker out and clear, I dare say, the Basil, because a dual attack 19k isn't what you want coming in. And we do have at least 5 cards tapped. Alright, so very easy for him to set that up. We're going to set up another mirror just here with the Kai. So as I said, it's kind of crazy. Like, I think Pat was definitely correct in what he did by clearing the board that last turn. But you can see how easy it is and how free it is for this deck to pretty much just do their whole game plan and what they needed to do in 1 turn, right? They lost their whole board and they just set the whole board up for 3 energy. Right, which is rather insane. So they're pretty much in exactly the same situation they were in before. But Pat still in a very good position at 3 life. Probably feeling quite comfortable too. He's got quite a lot of extra cards in hand. Really just needs to, I guess, last the game out a little bit more. Looks like we're going up to 5 energy. So getting closer, because I did just see a Fu Shrouded in Mystery in hand just there. So getting a lot closer to our Fu Shrouded, right, which is quite nice for him too. So he really probably wants to start getting some damage through, right? So drawing a card, playing out the Higher Dragon, having a riposte as well and Higher Dragon. Probably want to swing with High Dragon first. Sorry, not Higher Dragon. Swing with the leader first so we can combo off the vanilla and get our draw. Just because Chris does have access to at least 1 energy, and he can use a Kai and just warp it, get it off the board. We lose our draw, which is not ideal. Usually want to have our draw if we can. And there is the potential that Chris blocks the attack as well. So Pat just having a look at the drop area, keeping track of all the pairs that Chris has, right? And that's a very important thing against this deck, is keeping track of all the pairs where you can, and also keeping track of the Kais and mirrors to see, is it worth clearing the mirror, or is it just better to give it one attack, take it down a marker, force him to have to plus it up, all right? So then you can't use the minus effect, which I think in this case, that's going to be the best thing, is just take one marker off it, and that's fine, right? So we're going to swing in here, probably into mirror, I dare say. Blocking, we're going to combo, take it to 20, draw a card. I'm assuming Chris just lets this die. Doesn't need it to hang around, really, at all. Just lets it die. Riposte now probably goes into mirror, I would think. Looks like we're going into leader instead. So rather than going into the mirror, we're going to go into leader. Chris probably just going to let this damage go through unless he wants to start swinging with a few more things. I am surprised that... no, we've set up Koitsukai now as well, which is great. I'm surprised that Pat didn't go for the True Fighting Spirit, but that would make me think, right, if he does have Turles in hand, which I'm assuming he does because he's not attacking the True Fighting Spirit, because that kind of shocks me. We're going to put the Scions at the bottom, the Unison, the black one. So Pat is playing that, it looks like, a bit more aggressive. We're going to draw 2 cards. Right, I believe we just drew into a Turles as well. I'm pretty sure that's what I just saw in hand, which is quite nice for Pat if he didn't already have one. So we can clear the whole board once again. We can clear the 2 battle cards in rest mode. And then we can also swing into mirror, which is great. So we're going to get rid of the 2 battle cards. Right, really nice for him. And then we can swing into the mirror if he wishes, which I think, unfortunately, is still the choice, because now we're not going to take 1 marker off it because we don't want to play anything further. Let's just take the 2 markers off it and clear it off the board. Chris can get it back, obviously, because he's got a Kai and a mirror in the warp. So very easy for him to just do again, right? Which is rather scary. But at the same time, I think that's still the best play here. It's just clearing the board, forcing Chris to start again. Now, let's see how Chris can start again. I'm assuming straight away he's going to Koitsukai, right? So Koitsukai is probably the first thing we do. But I would Koitsukai and then set up 2 True Fightings, right, as well. So if, for any reason, Pat wants to counter, it's going to be an absolute tax on the hand. So Chris deciding to charge a True Fighting, which kind of shocks me, honestly. I would think that you just want to play that out onto the board, get them both out there, really, really tax the opponent as much as possible. Because we could have, I guess, charged something else there. We still have Gogetas in hand, and we still have the Goku, which could grab ourselves back a Gogeta, right? So potentially you should have gone for the Gogeta charge there instead. Now, the big thing with this as well is that if you set up the 2 True Fightings, there's the potential that instead of hitting the card that's being played with an effect, he could hit the True Fightings just to get them in rest mode. But it looks like Chris is going to go for the trigger instead. Doing the 30k. Placing it in rest mode, right? So as I said, if you set up the True Fightings, he maybe would have tapped down one of the True Fightings instead of tapping down the 30k. There is always that potential. I think that the 30k is still correct thing to hit here. I definitely feel like it's just too strong not to, right? So it looks like we're going to grab out our SR. We're going to put a pair into the warp here. I'm assuming we're grabbing the SS3 thwarting because we're going to swing that into leader. So I thought we'd be playing out. No counter, we're going to draw a card, right? Now, maybe this is why Chris went for the charge of the True Fighting Spirit so that he could grab the SR back rather than grabbing the promo, right? There is that potential. So maybe that's why he wanted to do it, because he knew he could set up another one. But I definitely think setting up these True Fightings is going to be really beneficial for him and trying to keep them on board as well. I know that's always hard in this deck because they do have so much rest. But being able to set up those cards just taxes the opponent a hell of a lot, especially alongside a Koitsukai, right? We're really going to force that damage. Now, I think Pat just found his Master Super Combo, which I think is just a one-off in the deck, but can be very, very strong. Now, we are going to hit Riposte, so we do have to warp some cards. Once again, as I said, this is where the 2 True Fightings on board would have made a huge difference, right? Because this would have been an extra taxing card. Now, Chris does have a Super Kamehameha. So depending on what he's going to go for here, he may go for the Super Kamehameha. Now, he does need to warp 2 cards from hand, I believe it is, for playing something less than 20k. Or 20k or less, I think it reads as. So, but it is less than 20k, so he does have to warp 2 cards from hand because we did Koitsukai just then. I hope they pick that up. Fingers crossed. Because I don't think I've seen anything get warped just yet, which is rather scary. Because that keeps Pat's hand a little bit higher. So it looks like they've missed it, potentially. We are going to Super Kamehameha instead. All right, so it's not even going to get played. It is just going to negate, right? So there's no need to warp. There we go. So I was thinking that they were playing on, but they were just talking about what the best decision here would have been. I think he's going for the Super Kamehameha. He wants to put the aggression through. Doesn't really have much to rest, unfortunately. We are going to hit a Goku and a Vegeta. Swing into the leader with another 20k. Now, Pat still has 1 energy up. So there is potentially has another riposte, right? There is that potential. So he could go for the riposte and just protect himself a little bit more. But we are going to go for our super combo just here, which is rather nice. Only having access to, I believe, 2 more energy. So we potentially have the mirror that we can play out as well. Not being able to swing with it though, sadly, because we'll only have 2 markers. Now we are going to take the effect off the SR. So this is probably the reason before. I think Chris just played it and then took it straight to the bottom of the deck because of that reason, right? But now he's lost the effect on it, which kind of sucks. He may go for his true fighting here just to establish it. As I said, I think really doing the 2 true fighting before would have made the huge difference. So you probably should have set them up straight away because I think they just tax the opponent so much, especially against yellow, where their whole game plan is really just countering pretty much everything you try to do. So I definitely think it would have been beneficial for him doing that, right? Now, he's establishing this guy. Now, I believe this guy gains 10k once per turn when it's either a counter or something's played with a skill or something along those lines. I cannot remember to save my life. But it does have double strike, I believe, as well. So we are going to swing in a true fighting spirit. Taking a life, right? Pat still at 3 here. Still quite a few cards in hand, but he is tapped out. And if Chris can, I guess, force some damage here, he potentially can close out the game, which is rather scary. Or put Chris in a position where he doesn't have enough cards in hand. Now, the only thing we do know here, though, right? Pat has Fu Shrouded in Mystery, right? So Fu Shrouded in Mystery potentially, right, wins Pat the game next turn if Chris can't close it out here. But Chris doesn't know that. We know that because we can see this top view, which is rather scary. Now, the other thing that I think possibly would have been the better choice here was actually swinging in with the double striker, because there is the potential that Pat finds one of the take a life negates, which is rather scary. Now, we do know though, right, as well, and this is the other hard thing, is we do know that Pat has a Zamasu super combo in hand. Chris has no knowledge of that at all, right? Hasn't seen that. We just saw it get drawn. So there is the potential that he can just tap down this double striker just here, and then literally just take the damage and potentially close out the game next turn with Fu Shrouded, right? Which is rather scary because he can just potentially take this damage. I don't think Chris has any other way to play cards out onto the board. He needs energy. And I'm pretty sure, as long as Pat's counted correctly, I'm pretty sure he's got the 10 in drop. I really hope that he has counted correctly. If not, he probably should have over-comboed a little bit there just to get the 10 in drop, because he can, as I said, close out the game very easily with Fu Shrouded this next turn if he did, right? So he's hoping he did. He's held out a hell of a long game, right? Gogeta Xeno does not like playing a game this long. So we are going to play out the Higher Dragon. I hope that, as I said, Pat has counted correctly here. So I really hope there's 10 in drop. I think there was potentially more than 10, I really hope, because we are seeing Fu Shrouded go down. So perfect there. Perfect little game ender for him, right? This is really, I think this is honestly going to steal the game, honestly. I think it's going to steal the game for Pat here because Chris was putting up a hell of a fight and really trying to get his damage through. But I think this Fu Shrouded is going to steal the game. Just here for Chris, for Pat, I said. Chris doesn't have too many cards in hand, unfortunately. And we know that the cards are 0 cost combos, his super combos, which is rather sad. Now, I think Chris is at 1 life as well because he tried to go for game that last turn. Now, I assume here Pat's just going to dump everything he's got, just force everything through, force the combo out, which I don't think is going to happen, and leaving the other few attacks on board. Yeah, so there we go, guys. Pat closing out with Fu Shrouded. Excellent card. Steals those wins sometimes, but really needed against that deck. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to subscribe, hit that bell to stay notified, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.